Hello everyone, welcome back. It's Space Engineers Plus Me, episode 20. I'm Enigmius, and today it's a milestone episode. Not only is it our 20th episode, but we're putting the Blue Behemoth into service for the first time. So this is the Blue Behemoth, and it definitely lives up to its name. We've made a number of changes since the last episode. Nothing major, nothing that you absolutely crucial to see happening real time, but definitely some changes. But first, we're going to start with just kind of an overall look at what we've been doing here. One of the things that we changed before we started on the aerial component was the drill and piston setup. Instead of 3 pistons, we only have 1 column of pistons now. I was finding with the 3 pistons it was doing very strange things, like pulling the drills apart into different groups. In addition to that, we've got a pair of merge blocks that are connected very firmly to the chassis through this conveyor block and then through the conveyor tubes. It is directly connected to the frame of the chassis, and then another merge block connected to the conveyors that are connected to the drills. So the piston, while these two are merged, the piston theoretically isn't even a component in this whole assembly. They're just kind of there. They're connected, but they're not necessary. They aren't going to be undergoing any kind of stress on account of the drills wanting to move. At least that's the idea. We're going to find out for sure whether or not it works when we get it down onto the ice. We've got a single gyroscope on this whole drill assembly set to override. Some people suggested that I try that, and maybe it would allow the drills to be a little bit more stable, a little less prone to causing problems. I also moved all of the left and right maneuvering thrusters on the air section. They're now inside the chassis a little bit more. They used to be basically just dangling from the underside here. Of these frames. You could see them in that area there where the blocks are now, but I just like the idea of having them up inside a little bit better. The one thing that I did add since the last episode is some tubes that lead to a conveyor to which is attached a piston and a connector, and there's an identical assembly on the other side, and this is what will allow me to hopefully connect to the umbilical right up there, right there, to unload stuff from storage. If we ever get full up, we'll be able to unload it, and then we can disconnect the connectors and fly away. This will not be a situation where we try and park the aerial section connected to the umbilical and just leave it there while we go do other things. And there's really not a whole lot more to talk about. It's ready to go. As far as I know, it's ready to go. So we're going to hop into the cockpit and the aerial section. We're going to take off. We're going to fly it out to the ice lake, and we're going to see how it does.
Now, one of my favorite things about this game is that it's never just hopping in a ship and taking off and flying with the standard set of keys and everything else. There's a series of steps that we have to go through to get the ship ready for use. It may sound a little bit tedious, but I mean, you build this big complicated ship, you might as well get some entertainment value out of getting it ready for flight. Now, in this case, I just put a little bit of uranium in the unconnected storage container down on the Rover side of things, so that it's there when we need it if we happen to use all of our uranium flying over to the ice lake in the flying module. Then at least we've got a little bit set aside. It's not being used by anything. I could have left it in the Rover reactor and turned the reactor off, but I decided just to, for my own peace of mind. Now in this case, we're looking at detaching the ship from the platform where we built it, because we have to get the landing gear off, the temporary landing gear. As soon as we release, did you see what happened? The connectors fell off, the pistons that were holding all of the drills, they fell off. The only reason why the drills didn't fall is because we've got the drills connected to the ship with merge blocks. Everything that was connected to the ship by pistons and only pistons is now gone. I'm trying to picture in my mind how to make this work in a scenario where the things don't fall off, or we have them properly attached to the ship so that we can at least move around, and then at some point use them. You can see the pistons are falling out from the drill section. I'm leaning towards maybe a bit of a bug at play, maybe a mechanic that isn't really lending itself very well to the idea of having pistons on mobile sorts of things. Maybe we need to focus on putting pistons on stations that aren't going to try and move, because every time we try and move, everything falls off. Now, one of the things that I did learn is that for the whole purpose of this exercise, that gyroscope that we have on top of the drills that was set to override completely disables the ability of the ship to turn side to side or to tilt up and down. Kind of a pain. Even worse, there's this little thing. See that little thing wiggling that just exploded just as I started to turn away? They're dogs now. They're dogs. They were released in a patch. They're sort of like cybernetic hounds. They chase after you, they bite and try and hurt you that way, but if they can't get to you, they explode. And they spawn in groups up to 3 at a time, and apparently, if they don't all explode, you can have up to 11 in the same area at once. They were included in a patch, and it was supposed to be, as part of the patch, you would have the ability to disable their spawning, because quite obviously not too many people are necessarily going to be thrilled at the idea of jihad dogs running around blowing up their stations and ships in numbers that make it so either you're spending all of your time mining magnesium to make ammunition for auto turrets, or you're spending all of your time mining magnesium for ammunition for your assault rifle, and you never actually have time to build anything because the dog spawns don't ever let up. It was kind of an unfortunate patch that left us in a situation where these dogs are just all over the damn place. Fortunately, in our case, the ship is very large. We don't have to worry too much about how much damage the dogs can do to a ship of this size. See, look at these guys. And they just run right off the edge of the platform because they were trying to get to me. And as soon as they realize they can't get to me, they'll explode. And that's basically the whole mechanic. I'm not a big fan of the dogs. I expect that as soon as the option to disable them is added into the game, as it was said it would be, then I will disable them, and it's quite possible that before we're able to do any more videos in this series, we're going to have to mod them out until the official option to remove them has been added to the game. Not the best moment in early access history. So we've released everything that was holding the ship to the platform. We've managed to survive the onslaught of the dogs. The pistons are gone, but at this point, this is the thing. It's like we could scrub the whole adventure because we know we're not going to be able to do any drilling, or we could see how the ship handles once we've turned off the gyroscope so that we can turn left and right and pitch up and down. See how it handles, see how well the whole mechanism of having the two ships connected and then releasing them and then landing the aerial platform and then going and doing some stuff in the rover, see how well that works, and just pretend like there was never supposed to be a drill element to them at all. I'm actually kind of partial to the idea of just flying off and pretending like we weren't supposed to be able to do any drilling at all. There's plenty of other things we can test without necessarily having to drill in the ice lake. So that's what we're going to do. And of course, it's not a fast ship. Even if it was, much smaller, it would still not be a fast ship relative to how long it takes to get out to the ice lake. So we're just going to speed this up a little bit. So we're just about to land. It took a little while. It takes a little while mostly because you get up to speed and then you get close to where you're going, you realize you have to slow down or you're going to overshoot it, and it takes a while to slow down because we don't have big honking thrusters dedicated to reverse thrust, which we could have technically if we really wanted them, but I didn't really want them that bad. So we've got 4 little maneuvering thrusters that are helping us slow down. But now we're in a good spot. We're just kind of descending, and again, controlling the descent. We don't want to build up too much speed as we're descending, otherwise we kind of bounce off the surface and do all kinds of damage. It's not a good thing to happen. Well, we're almost there. We've got a suspension system on the wheels, and I'm a little bit curious as to how that's going to work out to keep us from doing horrible things to the ship on landing. I suspect it'll be a little bit more forgiving than just rigid landing gears. Only way to find out is to touch down. But again, we're being very careful. Very, very careful. Also, you'll notice from time to time that we'll even get dogs spawning on the ice of the ice lake and chasing after the rover. Unfortunately for them, once we start moving, they tend to get run over pretty easily. So that's kind of a bonus for having a ship with giant wheels, many times larger than the dogs themselves, is that they tend to get run over instead of allowing them to explode and do all kinds of damage to our ship. We're not immune to damage from the dogs, but we're in much better shape than we could be. Now this is really just a case of finding which merge block and which connector to turn off so that we can release the flying segment from the rover segment, and then take the flying segment off somewhere else, land it, come back to the rover segment, and goof around and see what we can do with it. And the worst thing that could happen right now is nothing, because the worst thing that could happen right now is releasing one of the merge blocks that's connected to the drill segment and having it drop off from the rover, because there's no way to pick it back up again. We don't have any pistons there, so that would kind of stop the rover from moving. But we managed to pick the right ones. We've got just the aerial segment here. I gave a lot of thought to putting something on the landing gears that would allow them to retract, be it pistons or rotors, and I'm glad now that I didn't, because obviously we need to do a little bit more work around how to make the pistons work. But for the time being, I can see a lot of use just in the aerial section itself. If for no other reason, we've got the storage, we've got onboard a large reactor that can power different kinds of machines, refineries, arc furnaces, whatever. It's just a matter of pairing it with something that's actually going to be worthwhile. I think what we might be looking at doing after we've done our little segment on our welding ship is we'll do a stationary drilling mechanism that obviously you would have to build and then take down and then move it to the next deposit. But realistically, would hopefully get better use out of pistons, and we've got kind of an interesting idea for just how we would do the drilling. So now we've got the reactors turned off, make sure we're not burning uranium while we're away, and then we're flying post-haste to the rover, hoping to get there before the dogs show up and start making a mess, because that would be a damn tragedy. Pull the uranium out of the unconnected storage, put it in the reactor right there, and then it's just a matter of getting the wheels up and running, set properly. For some reason, when we built the wheels, it toggled them to reverse propulsion and reverse steering, so when you press forward it actually goes backward, and I didn't realize that until we had made a few changes and looked through the menus and found out that, oh yeah, by the way, it's set up wrong. We'll just have to fix that now. I've got a number of things on action bars, but unfortunately they don't label the things that you put on the hotbars with what they're doing. They just label them with the groups that they're attached to. You can see now I'm trying to move forward, but the wheels are rolling backwards. And it's not because we're rolling down a hill, it's because propulsion is set to inverted. Not exactly what we were looking for. The rover looks a lot smaller than it really is when we've got it zoomed out like this. It looks kind of average sized. But if we were to zoom in onto something that was actually person sized, it would look a lot bigger. So now we can mess around a little bit with the suspension. And in the process of messing around with the suspension, I learned how to make it jump, apparently. It's leaving little divots in the ice where it's landing, but oh, here comes a dog and another dog. As long as we've got some movement, I'm hopeful that we'll be able to squish them. I know, oh, there goes another one. It's just dogs. Everything is dogs. There's a dog trying to keep, he's chasing after the wheel. He's trying to keep up with it. I don't think he's going to be able to do it. It's stuff like this that's actually kind of amusing. It's when you've got a ship stationary on a platform and they're bashing the shit out of it for no good reason. That's when it starts to get a little bit irritating. But what I really wanted to do is see what kind of speed we could get on this guy. And this is probably the best way to set up the wheels, rather than trying to do it with individual settings on your hotbar. The initial setup, just do it from the menu, the control menu. And this is where we can see invert propulsion, invert steering. No, we don't want those. We don't want those at all. Power to the max. Set up the friction a little bit. Hopefully we'll get a little bit better traction. And that should be enough to get it started. We're not getting a lot of steering control. That's kind of one thing that I notice, is that we're not really able to steer very well. Something we can sort out in the future with our next Rover. But in terms of speed and its ability to do crazy things, we're airborne in the giant Rover. We just lost a wheel. I don't know how we lost that wheel. We were way up in the air, but you know, it's a thing. We're messing around. We did a backup save before we even left the platform. And the one tree was the end of us. Sideways now, waiting for the dogs to come finish us off. So that was, sadly, our drill ship. A lot of things worked. A lot of things about it were functional and successful. And a lot of things were just a no bueno, particularly anything involving pistons. So, next episode we're going to look at the little welding ship that we made. And then the episode after that we're going to be looking at another alternative, hopefully, for a ship that will allow us to do surface mining, digging down quite deep, and getting lots of materials that we can send back in the aerial unit, dock to our stations, unload them, go back, pick up more. That's the plan. So if you want to be notified when I add those videos, the easiest way to do that is to subscribe to my channel or follow me on social media. Links for social media are always in the information box below the video. Feel free to leave your comments and feedback. Thanks for watching, guys, and take care.